What if I told you that the most dangerous thing in a relationship isn't cheating or lying? What if it's something far more subtle, something that might seem harmless at first but is actually a red flag? It's the words of few seemingly innocent phrases that reveal exactly who someone truly is. These words, when left unaddressed, can destroy your life. Relationships don't end in an instant. They don't explode in one dramatic moment. No, they erode slowly, piece by piece, word by word, action by action. And if you fail to recognize the 5 deadly phrases a woman might say, phrases that expose manipulation, disrespect, and emotional chaos, then you are walking straight into a trap. So let me ask you, do you really know what to look for in a relationship, or are you letting attraction blind you to the truth? Do you find yourself ignoring the warning signs, thinking that love alone will fix everything? The sad reality is that one wrong relationship can cost you more than just time. It can take away your self-respect, your future, and even your sanity. But here's the good news. You don't have to waste years of your life. You don't have to stay trapped in a relationship that drains you. You can take control if you just learn to listen carefully. When a woman says certain things that seem small but hold much more weight than you realize you need to walk away. It may be hard, it may feel like you're giving up something precious, but trust me, it's far better to walk away than to stay stuck in a toxic situation. Why do so many men today feel powerless in their relationships? Why do they chase, beg, and tolerate the intolerable only to find themselves discarded, disrespected, or trapped in a dynamic where they're never enough? I'll tell you why. It's because they don't understand the fundamental truth of attraction and respect. They don't know what it truly means to be a man worth loving. Let me make this brutally clear. You don't get love by demanding it. You don't earn respect by sacrificing your dignity. And you certainly don't attract a strong, committed woman by being weak, indecisive, or afraid of setting boundaries. Yet, this is the trap that so many men fall into. They think that by appeasing their partner, overgiving and suppressing their own needs, they will be rewarded with devotion. But that's a lie. Worse, it's a self-imposed form of slavery. Do you know what happens when a man lacks a backbone in a relationship? When he refuses to stand up for himself? When he allows his partner's moods and whims to dictate his entire life? I'll tell you what happens. She isn't loved. He's tolerated, and eventually, he's discarded. A man who doesn't respect himself will never be respected by others. This is a hard truth to accept, but it's essential for you to understand if you want to break free from the cycle. As we move forward, let's explore the 5 deadly phrases in detail. These are the words that could be the downfall of any relationship if left unrecognized. Stay tuned, because understanding them will be the key to protecting your future happiness. As we discussed before, relationships are built on respect and understanding, and the key to preserving that foundation lies in having strong boundaries. Now let's dive deeper into why having that strength is crucial, and why many men struggle with it. Psychologically, women, whether they consciously admit it or no, are drawn to strength. But let me clarify. I'm not talking about brute force or aggression. I'm talking about moral strength, psychological stability, and unwavering integrity. A man who knows who he is, what he wants, and what he will and won't accept. That's the kind of strength that commands respect. Yet, so many of you are terrified of this. Terrified to enforce your own boundaries because you mistakenly think that standing up for yourself means losing her. But let me ask you something. What exactly are you holding on to if the only way to keep her is by abandoning yourself? The reality is, when a man has no backbone, when he avoids conflict at all cost, when he's afraid to speak his mind because he doesn't want to upset her, he is not a partner. He is a servant. And women do not fall in love with servants. Now, let's contrast that with the kind of man who commands respect, not through force, not through arrogance, but through an unshakable sense of self. This man walks with confidence, not because he's faking it, but because he has built himself into someone formidable. He doesn't chase love. He doesn't beg for approval. He doesn't alter his principles to gain temporary affection. And do you know what happens? He becomes irresistible. Why? Because he's rare. He possesses something so many men lack: certainty, direction, and the courage to enforce his own standards. A man like that doesn't fear loss because he understands this. It is better to be alone with dignity than to be in a relationship that requires him to sacrifice his self-respect. Let me tell you something important. If you do not respect yourself, if you allow mistreatment, if you tolerate the intolerable, you are teaching her precisely how to view you. The moment she realizes that you value her more than you value your own dignity, the attraction begins to die. Why? Because no one can truly love what they do not respect. Now, some of you may resist this idea. Some of you may say, but love is about sacrifice. Love is about compromise. And you're right, to an extent. Love does involve sacrifice and compromise, but only to a point. Love is not about sacrificing your identity, your values, or your dignity. And compromise does not mean abandoning yourself to please someone who refuses to meet you halfway. If you want to be loved, then be a man worthy of love. That means building yourself into someone strong, someone disciplined, someone undeniable. It means walking away when you are not valued. It means refusing to apologize for expecting respect. Because here's the truth. The moment you start accepting less than you deserve is the moment you teach the world exactly what you're worth. As we move forward, let's explore the deeper impact of words. What if I told you that the very words a woman speaks can reveal her true feelings, and how understanding these words can change everything for you? Stay tuned, because in the next section, we're going to uncover those key phrases that expose the truth and show you how to protect your self-respect. Continuing from our previous discussion, it's crucial to recognize that the words a woman speaks can determine the future of your relationship. In just a few sentences, you can clearly see whether she respects you, values you, or is testing the limits of your tolerance. But here's the question. Would you take these warning signs seriously? Or, like so many men, would you dismiss them until it's too late? Let me share something with you that most men never learn until it's far too late. The moment a woman disrespects you with her words, your relationship is already on a countdown to collapse. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually it will break down. Why? Because words are not just sounds. Words are signals. They reveal character. They expose intention. A woman will tell you exactly who she is, exactly what she thinks of you, and exactly what kind of relationship you're about to have, if only you listen. The problem is, most men don't listen. They hear the words yes, but they dismiss them, they justify them, they convince themselves it's just a joke, just an off day, just emotions. But here's the truth. When a woman repeatedly speaks to you with disrespect, she is showing you exactly how much she values you. She is teaching you how little she cares. And in that moment, she is testing how much she can get away with. You might think, but Jordan, relationships are complicated. People say things they don't mean all the time. Sure, sometimes that's true. But here's the key. Pay attention to patterns, not just moments. If a woman speaks down to you once, maybe you let it slide. Twice, you take note. 3 times? It's not a mistake. It's a test. A test to see how much she can push your boundaries. A test to see if you are a man who will demand respect or one who will tolerate being diminished. Let me tell you this. If you tolerate being diminished, it will only get worse. The more you allow someone to treat you poorly, the more you give them permission to keep doing it. Don't fool yourself into thinking that love will save you from this dynamic. Love without respect is not love, it's emotional manipulation. So, what do you do when a woman starts saying things that cut at your dignity, challenge your worth, and undermine your confidence, you walk. You walk away. Because if she does not respect you, she cannot love you. If you stay, you are teaching her that she can wound you without consequence. And when you do that, you not only lose her respect, you lose your own. A man who respects himself does not argue about whether he deserves respect, he enforces it. He doesn't try to convince a woman to see his value, walks away from anyone who refuses to see it. A man who values himself knows this. It is better to be alone with integrity than in a relationship that compromises your self-respect. Now that we've covered the importance of self-respect, let's take a closer look at the steps you can take to enforce your boundaries and protect your dignity. Stay tuned, because the next section will give you practical advice on how to regain control and never settle for less than you deserve. As we've just discussed, respect is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. Without it, things start to unravel quickly, and once that respect is gone, there's no turning back. Now, let's dive deeper into why it's essential to recognize when that respect begins to fade. When a woman tells you who she is through her words, believe her. Don't rationalize it, don't excuse it, and don't think that if you just love her enough or endure the mistreatment long enough, she'll eventually change. Here's the hard truth. If you stay with someone who disrespects you, the only thing that will change is you. And trust me, you won't like the man you become. You might start to question your own worth, compromise your values, and slowly lose yourself in the process. Let me ask you something. What if I told you that a single phrase from a woman's mouth could determine whether your future is filled with strength, growth, and mutual respect, or years of emotional erosion, where every day chips away at your dignity? Would you take it seriously? Would you listen carefully? Because here's something most men never realize until it's far too late. When a woman tells you that she doesn't respect you, believe her. Now, she won't always say it directly, no. That would be too obvious. Instead, it'll come in disguised form sarcasm, dismissiveness, subtle put-downs, or passive-aggressive remarks. And the worst part? Most men won't even recognize it when it happens. They'll laugh it off, make excuses, and tell themselves she's just in a bad mood, or maybe they're overreacting. But let me tell you this, you're not overreacting. You're seeing the truth for what it is, and you need to listen to it. Here's the truth, hard as it may be. If a woman doesn't respect you, she cannot love you. This is something you need to understand at a deep level. Because if you miss this point, you will waste years of your life trying to earn the love of someone who has no intention of giving it. Respect is the foundation of attraction. It's not just a preference, it's a psychological necessity. Women are wired to seek out men they admire, men they can trust to lead, men they can count on to stand firm in their values. So, what happens when you show that you're willing to tolerate disrespect? She loses trust in you. Why? Because deep down, she knows that a man who can't stand up for himself will never stand up for her. And that's a deal breaker. She needs to feel secure. She needs to trust that you're strong enough to protect both of you emotionally and physically. If you fail to enforce respect, you're telling her that you're weak, and she will lose faith in your ability to lead. Let's break this down further. What does disrespect sound like? It could be as subtle as, you never do anything right, or as blunt as, I don't even know why I'm with you. It could be the way she speaks about you in front of others, mocking you, belittling you, treating you as though you're less than. These words may seem small at first, but they are telling you everything you need to know. And the more you let them slide, the more you teach her that it's okay to treat you this way. Now that we've explored the critical importance of respect, it's time to discuss what you can do when you start to hear these signs. In the next part, we'll dive into how to enforce your boundaries and reclaim your self-respect. Stay tuned, because this is where things get real, and the power is in your hands to turn everything around. Continuing from what we've just discussed, It's important to understand that respect isn't something you negotiate, it's something you command. When a woman disrespects you, it's not something you should explain away or try to justify. The moment you attempt to reason with her about why she should value you, you've already lost the battle. You see, disrespect doesn't start at full volume. It begins small, just a dismissive comment here, a sarcastic jab there, and every time you let it slide, you teach her something. You teach her that she can get away with it. Slowly but surely, it escalates. Before you know it, you find yourself in a relationship where you're constantly defending yourself, questioning your worth, and being diminished. And the worst part, you allowed it to happen. But here's the turning point. The moment where you can rewrite your story. You don't tolerate it. You don't argue. You don't fight for respect like a beggar grasping for scraps. Instead, you make it clear through your actions that you will not entertain someone who does not value you. And if she continues to disrespect you, you walk. Let me tell you this, when you walk away from a woman who disrespects you, you command more respect in that single act than in 1,000 arguments. In that moment, you show that your value is not up for debate. You show that you are a man of standards. You prove that you are not so desperate for companionship that you'll tolerate being treated like an afterthought. And here's the paradox. When you hold yourself to this standard, you don't lose women. You attract better ones. Women who admire you, who appreciate you, and who are drawn to the rare strength of a man who actually respects himself. So hear me when I say this. The next time a woman tells you through her words or actions that she doesn't respect, you don't argue, don't explain, and don't justify, walk away. Because a man who respects himself never stays where he's not valued. But what if I told you that there's one phrasey phrase that sounds so innocent on the surface that is actually a ticking time bomb? A phrase that, if ignored, will slowly dismantle your confidence, drain your energy, and erode your very sense of self. A phrase that goes something like, if you loved me, you would... Let that sink in for a moment. I guarantee you, every man has heard some version of this, maybe not in those exact words, but with the same poisonous implication. It's a test, a trap, a psychological manipulation disguised as love. And if you fail to recognize it, you're walking straight into a relationship dynamic that will only lead to pain and resentment. Now that we've identified this dangerous phrase, let's break down why it's so powerful and how you can protect yourself from falling into this trap. Stay tuned, because understanding how to respond will arm you with the tools you need to maintain your dignity and keep your relationships healthy. Continuing from where we left off, we've discussed how respect is at the heart of any healthy relationship, and now let's explore another crucial concept. Love should never be used as a bargaining chip. Here's the brutal reality: love is not something that can be leveraged, twisted, or weaponized to control another person. And yet, how many men fall into this trap? How many of you think, maybe she's right? Maybe if I just do this one thing, it will prove my love for her. But it never stops at just one thing, does it? No, it starts small. If you loved me, you wouldn't go out with your friends so much. Okay, fair enough, maybe you compromise. Then it's, if you loved me, you'd cut off that female coworker. She makes me uncomfortable. Next it's, if you loved me, you'd stop working so late. You care more about your job than you do about me. And suddenly, without even realizing it, you're shrinking. You're folding in on yourself. You're erasing everything that made you an attractive, independent, self-respecting man in the first place. Do you know what happens when you give in to this? When you start proving your love through submission, through sacrifice, through bending to her every emotional whim, she loses attraction for you. Let's be clear, love is not supposed to be a test of obedience. Anytime someone demands that you prove your love by surrendering a piece of yourself, you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a psychological war zone, and trust me, you're losing. Now, some of you might be thinking, But is it love about compromise? Of course it is. But compromise is a mutual act. It's a discussion. It's two people working together to make things better for both of them. It is not one person using love as a weapon to mold the other into submission. Let's talk about the deeper psychological mechanism behind this. This is not just about relationships. This is about power. The second you allow someone to dictate your behavior under the guise of love, you've given them control over you, and control kills attraction. Men are not designed to thrive under submission. Just think about the great men of history, the ones who built empires, shaped civilizations, and stood against the forces of tyranny. Were they worried about whether their wives approved of them seeing their friends on a Friday night number? They were too busy being Memphis. And that's the core of it, isn't it? The moment you start proving your love through submission, you abandon your purpose. And when a man loses his purpose, he loses everything, his edge, his ambition, his very sense of self. And here's the irony. That's when the woman who demanded that submission stops respecting him. So, what do? The answer is simple, but not easy. You refuse to play the game. You make it clear, through your actions, not your words, that your love is not a currency to be spent on appeasement. You establish your boundaries, your purpose, and your value. Now that we've understood the impact of submission on relationships, let's dive into the next step. How to enforce your boundaries effectively and maintain your self-respect. Stay tuned, because in the next section, we'll explore how to reclaim your personal power and never fall into the trap of losing yourself for anyone. Building on the previous discussion about respect and boundaries, let's take a deeper look at what happens when you fail to maintain those boundaries, and why walking away from a relationship that doesn't serve your purpose is essential for your self-respect. When you stand firm in who you are, when you refuse to sacrifice yourself to prove your worth, you show her that your love is not conditional on submission. And if she continues to test, push, or demand that you compromise who you are to prove your love, you walk. Because here's something you need to understand. The moment you teach someone that your love is conditional on your submission, you'll spend the rest of your life proving yourself to someone who will never be satisfied. That is not love, that is slavery. Now, let me tell you something else that might surprise you. What if I told you that the most dangerous words a woman can say to you often sound the most innocent? What if I told you that a single phrase, just a few seemingly casual words, could be a warning sign of a relationship that will break you down over time? I just want to have fun. At first glance, that sounds harmless, right? Who doesn't want to have fun? But let's take a deeper look, because beneath that lighthearted statement often lurks something far darker. When a woman tells you, "I just want to have fun," what she's really saying is, "I'm not looking for commitment, responsibility, or consequences. I want pleasure without duty, freedom without accountability." If you're a man who is serious about your life, about your purpose, about building something real, then this should set off alarm bells in your head. Because here's the harsh reality. A relationship built on nothing but fun will shatter the moment real life intrudes. Fun doesn't hold people together when things get difficult. Fun doesn't build a foundation strong enough to withstand hardship. Fun is fleeting, and someone who prioritizes fun over meaning, loyalty, and growth is someone who will disappear when things get hard. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying relationships should be miserable. Joy absolutely has a place in love. Of course, you want to be with someone you enjoy being around, but enjoyment alone is not enough. And if a woman is telling you right from the outset that she's only in it for fun, what she's really telling you is that when the fun stops, so does the relationship. And let's be brutally honest about what that means. If she's only in it for fun, what happens when you have a hard day at work? What happens when your business fails? What happens when your father dies? When you're struggling with self-doubt or uncertainty? What happens when you're not at your best and you need loyalty instead of entertainment? she leaves. Why? Because a person who only values fun doesn't value you. They value what you provide in the moment, the excitement, the novelty, the highs. But the second those highs fade, they're looking for the next thrill. And if you tie your self-worth to someone like that, if you invest in someone who only stays when it's easy, you'll find yourself utterly alone the moment life demands something real from them. Now let's go even deeper. What does it say about you if you accept this kind of relationship? If you let yourself be used as a source of entertainment rather than as a man with a mission? The truth is, a woman who only wants fun is a woman who has no vision for the future. And a man who entertains that, who accepts it, who plays along, is a man who is selling himself short. Ask yourself, are you a man who is looking for something real, or are you willing to be a temporary amusement? Because if you're serious about your life, if you're on the path of discipline, purpose, and mastery, then you cannot afford to waste your time on people who do not respect that. Let me be absolutely clear. A woman who says she only wants fun does not respect you. She might like you, she might be attracted to you, but she does not see you as someone worthy of investing in. And that is unacceptable. So, what do? The answer is simple, but not easy. You walk away. You do not negotiate. You do not try to convince her to take you seriously. You do not diminish yourself in the hopes that she will one day change her mind. You walk. Because a man who respects himself does not beg for commitment. A man who respects himself does not waste his time on people who are not serious about him. A man who respects himself demands more, not with words, not with ultimatums, but with his actions. And when you walk away from women who only want fun, you send a messaggino just to them, but to yourself. You say, I am a man of purpose. I am a man of vision. And I will not be reduced to a source of amusement for someone who cannot see my worth. And that, my friend, changes everything. Now that we've established the power of walking away from relationships that don't serve you, let's explore the next steps in regaining your personal power and purpose. Stay tuned, because the next section will give you the tools to build a life filled with respect, self-worth, and real connection.